Hi, everybody. Welcome to our program. This is English Digest, and I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And it's our research unit for the month of January. And we're talking about something called stereotype threats, okay? And a stereotype, of course, is when you kind of prejudge someone. You look at someone and you think, oh, you're American. You must like pizza. You must own a gun. You have a cowboy hat and you ride a horse. Those are stereotypes that people might have. Of course, we Americans probably have stereotypes about people in Taiwan here as well. But there is something called stereotype threat. If somebody stereotypes you, it might affect how you perform on tests or how you see yourself and your self-esteem.
There are stereotypes for a reason. After long periods of history, some things, become kind of a pattern for people in different cultures. But don't oversimplify. Get to know people personally and then judge. Europeans often say about Americans is, oh, we always know you're American because you wear tennis shoes. Because the Europeans tend to dress up a little more when they go sightseeing. And Americans, we want to be comfortable. And we're awfully friendly. And we talk too much. Those are all stereotypes. Not all stereotypes are bad. People in the middle part of America, there's a stereotype that says they're all nice people. But the people, on the East Coast, they're not as nice. It's kind of true, though, Tom. I've lived both places. And, but don't prejudge. There are stereotypes because you know of a lot of past history, but get to know people personally. I've never heard of this one, though. Stereotype threats. We're going to learn more about it. It's part of research. In our research unit, let's get started. We'll read through today's lesson, and then we'll be back.
Women can handle pain better than men. Otherwise, how would they survive childbirth? Why is your dad cooking dinner? Shouldn't your mom be doing that? I thought Kelly would be good at math. He's Asian, isn't he? Have you ever heard or even made a statement comparable to the ones here? These are stereotypes, and they're used to make judgments about groups of people without any regard for a person's individual characteristics. Stereotypes, oversimplified ideas that are generalizations about a group of people, can come across either positively or negatively. Depending on one's personal experience, they can sometimes even seem closer to fact than fiction. Of course, some people in the group being stereotyped may adequately fit the narrative being made about them. However, this fact alone does not make a stereotype appropriate. Furthermore, those who don't fit the stereotype may endure adverse consequences resulting from the preconceived notion. This is known as stereotype threat. This phenomenon occurs when a person experiences stress because they're afraid they'll behave in a way that reinforces a negative stereotype about the group they belong to. Consider the following anecdote based on the stereotype that women don't perform as well as men in sports. Fiona is a star player on her high school soccer team. However, when she plays with her male friends, she never performs as well. Her performance suffers because she's more concerned about how she'll be perceived as a competitor than the match itself. Would Fiona play more confidently without the negative stereotype about women being worse at sports hanging over her head? Some research says yes.
Okay, guys, don't fall prey to stereotype threat. If you fall prey to something, it means you suddenly become a victim of it, or don't fall for it, or don't be deluded into thinking something. Don't fall prey to it. We talked about stereotypes and what they are before. Here's a stereotype. Women can handle pain better than men. I'm just going to laugh here and say, I actually believe this. Sorry. I have too much experience, at least in my own family and my friends. My dad is a baby with pain, and my mom was pretty tough. So I think it depends on the person, though, and I think that's what we're trying to teach you. Yes, there are stereotypes, but take the time to look at individuals instead of just a group, and you'll probably be more accurate.
Right, and this supposedly is a stereotype that women can handle pain better than men. Otherwise, how would they survive childbirth? As you said, there probably is some scientific evidence to support this. Yes, women are designed to pass a child. So yeah, maybe indeed scientifically they can handle pain better than men. But here we're treating this as a stereotype. Here's another one. Why is your dad cooking dinner? Shouldn't your mom be doing that? You might hear that sometimes. You hear it less and less, though.
Yeah.
Here, a lot of men actually enjoy cooking, and they're not that stupid. They can figure out how to use the oven and the stove and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
indeed.
I have a brother-in-law that actually cooks better than my sister, and we all say that, and my sister's happy about it.
Sure, yeah, most women would probably not complain about that. But again, this is probably a stereotype that men are fools in the kitchen. And here's another stereotype. I thought Kelly would be good at math. He's Asian, isn't he? We've heard about this particular stereotype. I've heard about this stereotype in two directions. One is, oh, you're American. You're probably horrible at math, which is actually true in my case. I think I just took basic algebra in university just to fulfill the requirement.
Well, generally, I'd say, at least the Taiwanese folks here, they're much better at math, generally, than American students in the same grade, at least.
Right, but still, we're treating this as a stereotype. Someone might say, oh, he's Asian, so yeah, he's good at math. You can ask him. The person might say, hey, you can't just say I'm good at math just because my parents are from Korea or something like that. You'll still have to talk to me as an individual.
I just think they spend more time studying math than we do, and they're more advanced generally in schools here. Anyway, here are some of those stereotypes that you might have heard before in the past. So have you ever heard or even made a statement comparable to the ones here? Comparable means similar to. It just means you can compare those two. This word can be pronounced two different ways. Comparable or comparable. I think comparable is probably used far more, but you can pick which pronunciation you're comfortable with. So yeah, my cooking skills are comparable to my younger sister's. So you can compare two different things or people, and if they're comparable, it means they're similar. They're fairly equal, you could say.
Right, you could say this word in Chinese is comparable to that other word in Japanese. I can't think of any good examples right now, but basically it's like a translation there. They're comparable to each other. They're basically the same thing, or at least they're very similar. So, yes, indeed, maybe you've heard of statements like the ones that we've asked here, okay? These are stereotypes, and we can probably think of lots of other stereotypes as well. Probably some negative ones. That we probably should not mention here because we might get in trouble for mentioning those stereotypes about, various racial groups or people
women are bad drivers.
That one, or certain ethnic groups are lazy. They don't work hard.
Oh, those
whereas
are bad.
we do.
I don't do those.
Stuff like that. Those are different kinds of stereotypes.
Yeah.
And, of course, these stereotypes are making judgments about groups of people without regard or without any regard for a person's individual characteristics. So basically it's saying that, oh, because you're Asian, then that must mean you're good at math. Or because you're American, you probably talk loud all the time. Or you think you're the best in the world or something without actually talking to that person to see what they actually are like as an individual.
Stereotypes or oversimplified ideas, that's what those are, used to make generalizations about a group of people can come across either positively or negatively. So a generalization, again, is just when you tend to say everything in this type of group is the same. And that's just not true. Actually, we see those even during the election season. They were saying if you're this ethnicity, you have to vote for this one person. And we wanted to say why. Everyone is different. We're all individuals. That's what I love about life. And you can be different. It's okay. So if you come across a certain way, that's how someone perceives you. Tom, when I first met him, came across as being very funny. And after I got to know him, that was actually true. He is funny. So if you come across a certain way, it's how someone views you or sees you, especially maybe the first time they meet you. You can come across a certain way. Americans come across as kind of arrogant. I think that's one of the stereotypes. We think we're cool. And Asians maybe come across as more humble. So those are, again, generalizations or stereotypes. Not everyone is the same.
No, they aren't, but we'll talk some more about stereotypes and more specifically about stereotype threat in the next part of our lesson. But right now we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是 Patrick 老师。我们今天学习的是第11单元 Unit 11 Don't fall prey to stereotype threat 不要因为成见威胁而受害。我们一起探讨了到底什么是 stereotype threat成见威胁，它的定义是什么？对人有什么影响？有无具体的实例？应该如何避免或降低它的危害？好，我们再回顾一下文章内容，也看看有哪些英文学习重点。首先，标题本身就有很大的学问了。我们先看 fall prey to 这个片语。prey 这个字是弱肉强食的动物世界中遭到捕食的猎物，因此fall prey to 并不难以理解记忆，就是受害、受折磨的意思。If you find yourself getting depressed easily and frequently, seek help from counselors or psychotherapists. Don't fall prey to depression. 如果发现自己很容易、经常感到忧郁或沮丧，请寻求咨商师或心理治疗师的协助，不要独自承受忧郁症的逼害。第一段有好几个句子放在引号中，这些话都是基于刻板印象而发表的言论。刻板印象在人类生活各个面向都可能存在，包括性别、种族、社经背景等。刻板印象最大的问题就是忽略了群体当中的个体存在个别差异。刻板印象有不适用甚至完全不符合事实的地方。我们一起看第一段的学习重点，请看到文章作者在连续3个人物发言之后，对读者提出了一个问题 Have you ever heard or even made a statement comparable to the ones here? 你是否听过或自己说过跟前面类似的话？这里的 comparable 就是类似 similar 的意思，而 the ones 指的是 the statements in the above 前面的话语陈述。Ones 是代名词，代指与前述名词同类的复数。我们再看一下 comparable 的用法，比方说 Jeff is the most wealthy person I know. He lives in a mansion comparable to a king's palace. Jeff 是我认识的人里面最有钱的，他住的豪宅跟皇宫差不多。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's time for us to resume our lesson, and we're talking about stereotypes, which are oversimplified ideas. They are generalizations about groups of people, and they can come across positively or negatively. They could be good or they could be bad. If you're Asian and people stereotype you as being good at math, you might like that. Yeah, I am good at math. Thank you very much. But if they stereotype you as being lazy and good for nothing, then that could come across negatively. So depending on one's personal experience, they can sometimes even seem closer to fact than fiction. So sometimes, yes, these generalizations or these stereotypes actually are true. Americans are bad at math. Well, Yes, that's true if you're talking about me because I am bad at math. So that stereotype can actually be true here. It's closer to fact than fiction. Fiction, of course, just refers to something that isn't true, like a novel. They tend to be works of fiction. They just made the story up.
Yeah, fiction is, of course, not true. It's stuff that people have made up, like Tom said, out of their imagination. Here, going on to the next sentence, it says, of course, some people in the group being stereotyped may adequately fit the narrative being made about them. I laughed about the one stereotype of women being bad drivers. Well, in my family, we have 5 girls. And I would say there are 3 of us are really good drivers and then 2 of us are terrible. So you could say that 2 of my sisters actually fit the narrative. A narrative is just sort of the story someone is painting for you. They say this is how life is, and then they give you facts to match that story or narrative. Well, 2 of my sisters really are bad drivers, but 3 of us are really good. So that stereotype doesn't fit us all in my family. So sometimes, actually, the stereotype fits a particular person in that group or maybe a couple of people. However, it says this fact alone does not make a stereotype appropriate. If something's appropriate, it's okay to do. If you go to a restaurant that's very fancy, it's inappropriate to walk in without your shoes and without a tie. And sometimes they need you to have a jacket on. So you have to dress appropriately for that particular restaurant. Or if you go to an interview, don't show up in, dirty clothes with your hair not combed. That's inappropriate. So if something's appropriate, it's suitable, it's proper, it's a good thing to do, it's right for that situation.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, it may be true. The stereotype may actually fit the person, but still, you can't be prejudiced, and you have to keep that stereotype in check before you actually meet the person. It's not appropriate to stereotype someone before you actually talk to them. Furthermore, or in addition, those who don't fit the stereotype may endure adverse consequences resulting from the preconceived notion. So, yeah, a lot of people probably are stereotyped by Americans as being lazy or something like that. And even though you're not, you still have to endure adverse consequences resulting from that stereotype. First of all, let's talk about this word endure. That just means to last a long time in a difficult situation. You kind of are suffering there. In order to run a marathon, you probably have to endure a lot of pain. It's probably quite difficult to run a marathon without hurting to some degree. You have to endure the pain. You have to bear the agony until you finish. And of course, we're talking about the preconceived notion here. Preconceived just means an idea that you have before you know the actual facts.
Right. I hate marathons, so I'm not someone who would want to endure the pain. So this phenomenon occurs when a person experiences stress because they're afraid they'll behave in a way that reinforces a negative stereotype about the group they belong to. Yeah, that can be tough. To say something reinforces something else, it just means it overemphasizes something. You can reinforce a bad habit by continuing to do it. So you have to not do that. It hurts these folks. So reinforce, just so you know, means to strengthen or support something, especially with additional information or material or facts. So, yeah, a person can experience a lot of stress if they behave in a way that hurts that group that they belong to, that has that negative stereotype attached to it. Now, consider the following anecdote based on the stereotype that women don't perform as well as men in sports. An anecdote is a story, usually that people tell as an illustration to something they're trying to, a point they're trying to make, I should say. Fiona is a star player on her high school soccer team. However, when she plays with her male friends, she never performs as well. She probably feels extra pressure to perform well. And if you're feeling a lot of stress, you tend not to do your best.
Exactly. I can't imagine this happening. Usually they keep the men and the women separate, but if she does play soccer with her male friends, yeah, she'll be under pressure to perform well because she is the star player on her high school soccer team. And, of course, we've got the stereotype that women don't perform as well as men in sports. Now, her performance then will suffer because she's more concerned about how she'll be perceived as a competitor than the match itself. So here we've got the verb to perceive, which means you are aware of something, you know it's there, you're conscious of that thing. So they'll look at her or they'll think that she doesn't play as well as men because she's a woman. It's a stereotype. And here we've got the word competitor. That just means someone who competes in some type of competition, whether it's a speech competition or a sporting match. You're a competitor. If you enter a marathon, you are a competitor.
You sure are. I understand that. I'm sure the guys were looking at her, expecting her to mess up or not to be as good. Or maybe they're looking at Fiona thinking, oh, she's going to make us look bad because she's so good. Who knows what the guys are actually thinking? We just should be kind to each other and not prejudge and just let people perform and do the best they can. So, would Fiona play more confidently without the negative stereotype about women being worse at sports hanging over her head? I have some advice for Fiona. Forget about that. Just do your best. Who cares about the negative stereotypes? Just play well. Don't look for chances to blame other people. Just do your best. And I think that would solve the issue. I think we're too hung up on all this stuff, really.
Right, but that might be easier said than done. Some people probably feel this more than others, and that's what we will discuss next time in our program. But I did want to talk a little bit about this phrase, to hang over one's head, okay? That means you have some kind of burden or you have something bothering you, and you just can't free yourself from that, okay? Maybe you've got to take care of some business that's difficult to take care of. I've got some trouble with the tax department or something, and it's been a long time since I've been able to deal with that. So yeah, I've got that hanging over my head. I'm worrying about that all the time. I lose sleep, I get nervous, I overeat. I'm just having a terrible time.
Or maybe the weekend's upcoming and I say to Tom, yeah, I'd love to just relax this weekend, but I've got that article I have to write hanging over my head. Some sort of work that I haven't finished yet. So it's best to get those things done quickly so you don't have them hanging over your head so you can relax. That's it for day 1 of our research unit, guys. We're going to listen to our Chinese teacher one more time, but we're not finished talking about this topic. So we hope you'll join us for our next program. But right now, let's listen to our teacher first.
好，我们再回到第2段，请同学把 oversimplify 前面加上括号，一直到逗号前的 people。括号里，对一群人一概而论，过度简化的想法、观念，这就是 stereotype 的同位语，也等于是刻板印象的解释。也学到了什么是 stereotype threat， 成见威胁。Those who don't fit the stereotype may endure adverse consequences resulting from the preconceived notion. 不符合刻板印象的个体，可能必须承受先入为主的观念所造成的负面后果。至于什么样的 adverse consequences， 则在后面一段 Fiona 这个女孩子的故事有更清楚的介绍。好，看到英文学习重点，请注意第3句 Some people in the group being stereotyped may adequately fit the narrative being made about them. 同一个句子里有2个 being， 老师希望同学看得清楚。首先，关于第一个 being，这其实是关系子句省略后的结果。未省略之前是 some people in the group which is stereotyped。由于关系代名词 which 省略了，其后 is 恢复成 be 动词原形 be， 再加上 ing， 所以变成 the group being stereotyped。受到刻板印象描绘的团体当中，有些人可能极为符合印象当中的描述。再看到第2个 being， 也是关系子句省略后的结果。未省略之前是 the narrative which was made about them. 第3段告诉我们 stereotype threat 如何对人造成危害。如果自己所属的群体在大众心中已经形成刻板印象，个体会怕自己的表现印证、强化了大众对这个群体的负面印象，个体反而承受很大压力，无法好好表现。课文以 Fiona 这名校队的女足球员为例，大众认定女生在足球这项运动一定没有男生踢得好，而 Fiona 因为过于在意自己身为女性的表现，反而因为压力而无法在比赛中发挥正常水准。Her performance suffers. Her performance suffers. 中文的意思是她的表现欠佳。Suffer 一般同学会想到受苦、受难，但是在这个句子里 ，suffer 不解释作受苦，而是品质变差了。好，我们第1天的课程讲解就到此结束，谢谢大家，拜拜。
That's all the time we have for today, guys, but we hope you'll join us for our next program. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.